Imagine for a second that you are, well, living inside a tin can. But not just any tin can. You're on a 50-year journey across the void of space, heading toward an entirely new star system.
Right.
Or picture a totally different scenario. Let's say your biological body has failed and your mind has just been successfully transferred into a synthetic robotic body.
Yeah, your consciousness is now literally running on a machine.
Exactly. So, what happens to your constitutional rights? I mean, do you still have them? Who enforces them? And, what do those rights even look like when you aren't strictly a biological human on Earth anymore?
It's the ultimate legal frontier. And it's not just science fiction. I mean, it's an impending legal reality that is going to fundamentally break our current systems of governance if we don't figure it out soon.
And that is exactly what we are untangling today. Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a massive stack of theoretical, legal, historical, and technological notes. We are exploring how human governance must radically evolve to survive the next 200 years.
Yeah, because we aren't just talking abstract concepts.
Yeah.
We are looking at the concrete legal frameworks required to stretch humanity in two completely opposite directions at the exact same time. Outward into the physical void of space and inward into a digital metaverse.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Where do we even begin with writing laws for Mars or like a digital simulation?
Well, to understand how we write those laws, we actually have to look backward first. Before we can establish property rights on another planet, we have to understand how laws survive extreme environmental changes.
Okay.
And this brings us to a concept in legal theory known as constitutional Darwinism.
Wait, Darwinism, like evolution? Because
Yeah.
usually when I think of a constitution, I think of it more like a machine, like an old grandfather clock that the founders wound up and it just, ticks away perfectly in the background.
Right, and that is exactly how early American thinkers viewed it. That's the Newtonian model of government.
Right.
Viewing the state through the lens of Isaac Newton's physics.
Right.
It was seen as this static machine of checks and balances, designed to just remain in permanent equilibrium. But constitutional Darwinism argues that this view is completely wrong.
Okay, how so?
Well, progressive-era thinkers realized that a government is not a machine at all. It's a living organism.
Yeah.
Its constitution is its genetic code. And just like an animal, a government must adapt to environmental pressures.
Right, pressures like massive technological shifts or off-world colonization.
Exactly, or it literally faces extinction.
Wow. So governments can just die out because their DNA is too rigid. I mean, there are actually some brutal historical examples of that in our sources, aren't there? Like the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Their 1977 constitution hard-coded a completely centralized industrial economy.
Yeah.
They literally wrote their economic model into the foundation of the state. So when the global environment shifted to an information-based economy, the state couldn't adapt, and it just dissolved.
Right, couldn't flex. Even America's first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, required a unanimous vote for almost everything.
Oh, yeah.
It was totally paralyzed by its own rigid code and basically went extinct in just 8 years.
Wow. So rigid constitutions suffer from evolutionary maladaptation.
Exactly. So if we want to successfully stretch a government across the solar system, we have to look at how governments previously stretched themselves across oceans. Take the historical precedent of the British Empire in the 1600s.
Okay, how did they handle it?
Well, when Britain expanded across the Atlantic, they engaged in deep legal pluralism. They realized very quickly that rigid English law could not efficiently govern a colony 3,000 miles away.
Oh, that makes total sense. I mean, if you are a governor in Jamestown, you can't wait 6 months for a ship to sail to London and back just to get a ruling on a property dispute. You would literally starve.
Exactly. So the British allowed early colonies and chartered companies to operate under highly flexible, localized rules just to survive the harsh environment and do business.
But they were still British, right?
Yes. Crucially, while allowing that local flexibility, London maintained overarching parliamentary supremacy. The United States, or really any spacefaring power, will have to follow this exact trajectory.
So initial outposts on the moon or Mars will operate under corporate or military local habits.
Yeah, because the environment is just too unforgiving for standard terrestrial laws. But eventually, as those colonies grow and generate immense wealth, a formalized, overarching legal framework from Earth will just absorb them.
But hold on, let me push back a little here. Wouldn't the United Nations just handle this? Like, why does it have to be a specific nation's legal framework evolving? We literally have a global governing body right now.
I get that, but if we apply the lens of constitutional Darwinism, The UN is highly likely to collapse in the space age.
Seriously, the UN just, like, goes extinct.
It almost has to. By design, the UN cannot survive the environmental pressure of space expansion. It relies on consensus among terrestrial nation-states, and it is built entirely on the concept of sovereign equality,
Meaning what, exactly?
meaning it fundamentally cannot legally restrict a nation's sovereignty. Furthermore, the UN operates on an Earth-first veto system.
Oh, right, the Security Council.
Yeah, any of the 5 permanent Security Council members can veto a planetary initiative simply to protect their own Earth-based political interests.
Man, that sounds like a nightmare. It is like trying to steer a Formula One race car remotely using a committee of people who all have their own steering wheels.
Right.
And any one of them can just slam on the brakes whenever they feel like it.
Exactly.
So if the UN can't govern space because it's too sluggish for real-time survival and resource extraction, who or what actually takes its place?
Because the UN's consensus model fails under the harsh realities of space, a much more brutal hierarchy of law has to take over to ensure human survival. The shift moves toward a federation model,
Okay.
dictated not by a global committee, but by whichever spacefaring powers hold actual physical sovereignty in those colonies, and they will enforce a new 3-tiered system of law.
So let's put you, the listener, in this scenario. You are standing in a habitat on Mars. What are your rights under this new system?
Your rights are structured in a strict pyramid, and the courts use a doctrine called strict environmental scrutiny to manage them.
Okay, what's at the top?
Level 1 sits at the absolute top. Astro-constitutional rights, sometimes called trans-constitutional law. This is the supreme law governing physical survival. It guarantees things that Earth provides for free.
Like air.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have the right to atmosphere, the right to life-critical resources, and the absolute duty of mutual rescue.
Okay, so level 1 is just keeping my heart beating and keeping me breathing. What about my normal rights?
That is level 2. The U.S. Constitution, or your standard Earth rights, you still have due process, freedom of speech, protection from unreasonable search and seizure.
Okay, good.
However, level 2 is completely subordinated to level 1. And finally, you have level 3, Lex Specialis. These are the daily local codes. Airlock protocols, waste recycling quotas, solar panel maintenance shifts.
Right. I want to focus on that conflict between level 1 and level 2, though, because the survival vetoes freedom scenario is completely mind-bending.
It really is.
Let's think about water for a second. On Earth, water is managed by capitalism. You can buy it, bottle it, hoard it, sell it for a massive markup. But on Mars...
Right, on Mars, it's totally different.
Yeah, if you assert private property rights over a critical air vent, or if you try to hoard the colony's water supply to drive up the price, that is not considered a shrewd business practice. That is literal treason.
It has to be. Because hoarding water violates level 1, the right to life-critical resources. If your right to peaceably assemble, which is a level 2 Earth right, blocks a critical ventilation shaft, the astro-constitutional right to atmosphere immediately shuts down your assembly.
Wow.
The environment is so hostile that the community's biological survival will always crush individual liberties. Level 1 always wins.
It's a total inversion of how we think about corporate freedom. Like, a corporation might own the habitat, but they can't just cut off oxygen to striking workers because life support is a supreme public utility.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. Physical survival requires this intense, almost absolute authoritarianism. Humans are not built to live under that kind of psychological pressure indefinitely.
No, we aren't.
If you are on a 50-year interstellar journey, trapped in a tin can under strict martial law, people are going to snap.
Which is exactly why the human mind won't be living in the physical tin can. To stay sane, the population will live almost entirely inside a hyper-expanded metaverse simulation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the physical body is asleep or sedated in a pod, while the consciousness explores infinite digital worlds. And this necessity forces the law to literally split in two.
Wait, so we have two entirely different legal realities happening at the exact same time?
Yes, it's called the dual constitutional framework. You cannot govern a limitless digital simulation with the same brutal laws that govern a spaceship lacking oxygen. So the law bifurcates. First, you have the extra constitution. This governs the physical ship. It is incredibly rigid. It enforces a Darwinian populating mandate and strictly subordinates individualism to ensure the biological human line does not die out before reaching the destination.
So the physical body is essentially reduced to a vessel that must be preserved.
Exactly. But the mind is completely free.
Completely.
Completely. The mind is governed by the meta-constitution. Inside the digital simulation, reality can be customized. Even reproduction isn't biological anymore. Scholars are calling it intellect breeding.
Intellect breeding, what is that?
It's where two digital minds can merge their ideas, memories, and code to create a third, entirely new, sentient entity.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is, and it requires entirely new rights. The Meta-Constitution guarantees the right to interoperability.
Meaning I can move my digital self around.
Exactly. You have the right to move your consciousness freely between different digital worlds without being trapped or owned by a single tech corporation. And it guarantees the absolute supreme right, protection against sudden server deletion.
So someone unplugs the server.
In the metaverse, an unlawful eviction or a server wipe is the legal equivalent of first-degree murder.
Okay, this brings up a massive jurisdictional paradox. Let's say a digital citizen commits a horrific crime inside the digital simulation. Do the physical authorities, the people running the actual spaceship, have the legal right to punish their physical, biological body lying in the pod?
Answering that requires looking at how crime actually functions in a digital realm. Because in the metaverse, physics and standard biology no longer apply. Evolution and interaction in the simulation become what we call Lamarckian.
Lamarckian, wait, let me make sure I understand that. Lamarckism is that old, debunked biological theory, right? The idea that if a giraffe stretches its neck a lot during its lifetime, it will literally pass a long neck down to its baby. Biology relies on random mutation. It doesn't work like that.
Biological evolution doesn't work that way, no. But technology and software absolutely do. Lamarckian code copying means that traits, skills, memories, and even digital viruses acquired during your lifetime can be instantly copy-pasted to your offspring or any new entity you help create through intellect breeding.
Oh, wow. So evolution happens at the speed of data transfer. You learn a skill, and your digital child is just born with it.
Yes, and the terrifying flip side is that crime becomes hereditary.
Hereditary crime. Under our current laws, if a parent commits a crime, their child is legally innocent. You can't punish a kid for their parents' actions.
But in a Lamarckian metaverse, the child isn't just influenced by the parent. They inherit the literal code of the crime. This introduces entirely new constitutional offenses.
Like what?
For example, there's the crime of malicious breeding. That's intentionally passing down a malicious subroutine, like an acquired urge to siphon processing power from your neighbor.
Okay, wow.
And there is contaminated inheritance. That's where a citizen acquires a trait that bypasses security protocols and copies that trait into their offspring. The offspring is literally born with the active capability and the neurological inclination to break the law.
So how do you even run a trial for that? You can't just put a digital avatar on a witness stand and have a jury of their digital peers look at them to see if they are lying.
You can't. Human juries are completely replaced by mathematical jurisprudence. Everything is governed by algorithms. Courts use automated code lineage audits.
How does that work?
The judicial algorithm traces the exact timestamp of a specific malicious code block. It assigns vicarious liability if the parent passed it down negligently, or sole liability if the offspring modified it themselves.
And what do the punishments look like? Because throwing a digital mind into a digital prison cell seems incredibly pointless. You're just wasting server processing power.
Prisons become completely obsolete. Punishments become mathematical operations. The first is de-evolutionary reversion. The court basically forces a rollback on your mind. Your consciousness is mathematically reset to a saved state from years prior, before you acquired the criminal trait. The intervening years of your life, your memories, your experiences, they are legally erased.
Oh my God, that is chilling. It's basically partial brain death as a legal sentence.
It is. The second is code expungement. The court permanently scrubs a malicious inherited trait from you and your entire lineage. They retroactively edit your digital genetic history.
And the third?
The third is forced systemic split. If an entity has grown too powerful or too dangerous to fix, the court forcibly splits the mind into two separate, lesser processing entities, diluting their power so they can no longer threaten the simulation's stability.
Okay, I have to throw a massive red flag on this regarding cognitive liberty. If an algorithm has the absolute power to audit your code, roll back your memories, and retroactively delete your traits, what stops the system from turning completely tyrannical?
That's the huge danger.
Right. What stops a governing algorithm from deciding that political dissent or questioning the government is a malicious trait and just wiping it from the digital gene pool entirely. And just to be clear, we're totally neutral here. We're just looking at the theoretical mechanics of the law from the sources. But the mechanics seem terrifying.
They are, and frankly, the legal framework hasn't solved this yet. It is the core constitutional dilemma of the era. The proposed defense against tyranny is something called a core consciousness clause.
What would that do?
It would be a supreme firewall stating that your foundational, self-aware code is untouchable by the state, and only acquired functional subroutines can be audited.
But how do you cleanly separate foundational personality from acquired habits? You really can't.
Exactly. The line is entirely blurred. So the tension between maintaining public digital safety and protecting fundamental cognitive freedom is going to be incredibly messy. There is no clean answer.
So we have talked about surviving under authoritarian rules on Mars, and we have talked about the bizarre realities of digital crime in a metaverse. But how do we actually get there?
Right, the transition.
Yeah. How do our modern Earth-based courts legally bridge the gap between biological humans and synthetic robotic vessels? We can't just jump straight from humans today to uploaded minds tomorrow.
No, we have to build a legal bridge first. And the secret to that bridge lies in something we already use every single day: current disability law.
Wait, really? The Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Yes, the ADA. The law must prepare for a future where consciousness is divorced from biology. But it has to start with the frameworks we already have. Under the ADA, technology is already legally recognized as an extension of the human body.
Oh, like pacemakers or motorized wheelchairs.
Exactly. Or neural-linked prosthetic limbs. These are not just property. They are protected extensions of a person's physical agency.
So if a human mind is transferred to a full robotic frame because their biological body failed,
The law will initially view that robotic frame not as a machine, and certainly not as property, but as a total body assistive and adaptive mobility and life support device.
wow, that is such a brilliant legal hack because it forces the entire system to treat them as human immediately.
It changes everything. Under equal protection and disability doctrines, society is legally required to provide reasonable accommodations.
Right.
This legal mechanism forces cities, workplaces, and courts to adapt their infrastructure and laws to accommodate robotic human citizens long before society ever has to debate the philosophical concept of robot personhood.
But I'm curious, why use the ADA and equal protection at all? Why not just use Asimov's 3 laws of robotics? You know, a robot may not injure a human being, all of that. Everyone knows those rules. Why wouldn't those just work?
Because Asimov's laws fail completely in a legal context. Asimov's laws are algorithmic safety coding. They're built for appliances to prevent physical accidents. They're not built for citizens.
Oh, I see. So applying Asimov's laws to a conscious synthetic human is like using the warning label on a kitchen blender to protect your civil rights.
That's a great analogy.
It tells you how to not cut your hand off, but it does absolutely nothing to protect you from discrimination.
That is a perfect way to look at it. An algorithmic safety law cannot understand systemic discrimination. It completely lacks the intervening clauses of equal protection regarding race, sex, national origin, and disability.
Right.
If a human consciousness is placed inside a synthetic body, it does not need core programming that forces it to be a slave to humanity. It needs a constitutional shield equal protection to ensure it cannot be exploited, repossessed by a corporation, or simply turned off.
So what does this all mean for us right now? Because we don't have to wait 200 years to see the growing pains of human-machine integration. It feels like we are dealing with this every day.
We are already entering the very first phase of this integration. It's called cybernetic symbiogenesis, or the Centaur model. We are merging with AI to create a hybrid intelligence that is structurally superior to humans or AI alone.
Okay.
But this integration is currently causing a massive crisis in our shared digital gene pool, specifically in the open source software community.
Right, the open source community. These are the people building the digital infrastructure that basically runs the modern world, from banking to healthcare.
Exactly. And right now, AI-generated code is overwhelming human maintainers with a massive influx of low-quality submissions. It is known as AI slop.
AI slop.
Yeah. Because AI tools are so accessible, non-technical users are engaging in something called vibe coding. They aren't actually writing code. They're just giving an AI a prompt like, build me this app feature, and then submitting thousands of lines of code they don't actually understand.
And I imagine that creates a terrifying bottleneck for the actual humans trying to verify it all.
It is paralyzing them. Human maintainers are drowning in a tenfold surge of code submissions. And the real danger is that the code is deceptive.
Deceptive how?
Well, it looks structurally sound. It might even pass basic automated tests, but it is full of what developers call technical debt. Imagine building a house where the walls look totally fine, but the plumbing inside is made of cheap, degraded plastic that is guaranteed to burst in 5 years. That is what AI slop does to digital infrastructure. It introduces outdated dependencies and severe security risks, like hard-coded passwords hidden deep in the code. Bots are even flooding projects with fake, official-looking bug reports that hallucinate problems that don't exist, forcing humans to waste hours chasing ghosts.
So human developers can't possibly check every single pipe in the house. How do they fight back against an army of bots flooding their life's work with this slop?
They fight back by deeply integrating with AI themselves. The community is deploying specialized defensive AI frameworks directly into their pipelines. Tools like CargoCrap evaluate technical debt mathematically to catch that fragile AI code before it merges.
Okay, so AI acting as a filter.
Right. They use tools like SonarCube, which acts as an automated continuous integration reviewer, instantly catching hard-code credentials and security flaws before a human ever has to waste time looking at the code.
But how do they figure out who's actually sending the codes? How do you know if you are talking to a human or a bot?
That is where the ecosystem relies on tools like TreeShip. TreeShip uses cryptographic logs to verify the origin of AI agent actions. Think of it as a digital fingerprint that proves a verified human actually oversaw the AI, tying the automated code submissions back to an accountable biological operator.
The irony of this entire situation is absolutely fascinating. I mean, to protect ourselves from bad, low-quality AI code that is flooding our systems, we as humans are being forced to deeply integrate with specialized defensive immune system AIs.
Yeah, we have no choice.
We literally cannot survive the digital environment we have built without merging with the machines. It proves that the symbiotic human-machine centaur model isn't just some sci-fi theory, it is truly our only path forward.
If we step back and look at the bigger picture, what we are seeing in open source software today is the dawn of the exact evolutionary process that will eventually put us in those synthetic bodies and interstellar ships.
What an incredible journey this deep dive has been. We started by looking at how the British Empire's use of legal pluralism across the Atlantic tells us exactly how we'll have to govern colonies on the moon. We unpacked the terrifying reality of Martian law, where survival vetoes freedom and hoarding water becomes literal treason.
We explore the dual constitution of the metaverse, where Lamarckian digital crime means a malicious piece of code can literally be inherited by your digital offspring, leading to entirely new mathematical punishments.
And we brought it all the way back to today, how the Americans with Disabilities Act serves as the brilliant legal bridge for uploaded minds, and how the current crisis of AI slop in open source coding is actively forcing us into our next evolutionary phase.
Which raises an important question, and it is something I want you, the listener, to mull over as we conclude.
All right, let's hear it.
Imagine that your mind is eventually uploaded into that metaverse we discussed. Once you are there, you begin acquiring new code. You merge your consciousness with advanced AI tools to protect yourself. You download new intellectual traits at the speed of data. At what precise mathematical percentage of new code do you legally cease to be you and become an entirely new species?
A completely new species, running in a synthetic body, living inside a digital simulation while hurtling through space in a tin can. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.